This is the only cycling podcast that is going to have this particular discussion.
Yes, win.
Well, that's another kettle of fish.
Welcome back to the Spin Cycle Podcast, everybody. I am Kaylee Fretz. Today on the show, a Belgian fan should be going to prison. A Belgian rider got locked up in a hotel room. And Mads Pedersen is going to win Flanders, according to Kit. Let's get to it. Kit Nicholson, I apologize for just throwing you under the bus there. But
Yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily it isn't my opinion at all. It's stats that tell me this. So, stats are king. I don't know.
Give me the
It's a
stat.
numbers game, isn't it? The last time that Mads Pedersen won a race solo, according to Pro Cycling Stats, was at the in fact, no, not just according. I looked. GP Isberg in 2019. So it was in the autumn, and 7 days later, he won the World Champs in Yorkshire. Of course,
what is 7 days from Gent-Wevelgem?
7 days from Gent-Wevelgem, Tour of Flanders.
Ah, so it's basically in the bag.
Well, I mean, it's written already.
Let's get to today's show. We do have a lot to talk about because there's.
Should we introduce Johnny? He hasn't been introduced yet.
Oh, Johnny Long.
I'm always here. Always here.
He is always
part of
here.
the furniture.
He is always here. Let's get to the weekend's racing because there was quite a bit since we recorded last time. Our Friday show recorded a little bit too early to talk about E3, so we're going to talk about E3. We're going to talk about Gent-Wevelgem. We're going to talk about a rider who got stuck in a hotel room. We're going to talk about some really unfortunate news about Fabio Jakobsen. We got a fair amount to get through today. Let's kick off with kind of run it in chronological order. Let's kick off with E3 and Mathieu van der Poel. Sort of a classic finale, I think, from him. He's done this a bunch of times now. Also got spit on, so that was unfortunate.
Yeah, got spit on by a middle-aged man, all dressed in black, who you could see it because you could see it coming from afar with the TV angle because the motorbike was behind Van der Poel. You could kind of see him think about it and then just be like, yeah, I know I'm going to spit on another human being. Apparently he is being there's like an investigation's been opened into the incident. The local police are after him and have appealed for witnesses. So we've got yet another one of these, Oppie Omi, the hat throwing woman from Roubaix last year with Van der Poel situations going on. Interestingly, with the hat throwing woman, to scoop myself on something I'm trying to work on, is I've been belligerently asking ASO for updates on the hat throwing woman because she's supposed to be volunteering with the Friends of Paris-Roubaix to get it ready as part of her punishment. That's kind of how the rule of law works over in Belgium and mainland Europe. It seems sometimes it's like, there's going to be something very public, it's basically like the public stocks, whatever. But they have been very cagey as to what's going on. So maybe the woman is not cleaning the cobbles. But anyway, the Spectator, disgusting, human, should be locked up in jail. I don't know what about Van der Poel irked him so much, but
is it kind of shocking that this doesn't happen more often? I mean, I remember we were talking about it in cyclocross season last fall, and I was like, that was a beer throwing incident. And my point was sort of, if you basically ride through a bar, which is kind of what cyclocross is, you should maybe some level of beer throwing is maybe built in. It's unfortunate, but it's probably built in. Spitting, totally different thing. Very different thing. Nonetheless, if you sort of think about like other sports and the way that fans act in other sports, there's usually a barrier between a fan
or they're far enough away,
athlete, or they're far enough away. There's a gap, right? There is no gap in cycling, so I guess I'm just kind of shocked it doesn't happen more often.
Yeah, I get the cyclocross thing. It's more loutishness than anything else, I'd say. And for a lot of the population who go to cyclocross races, it's about drinking like 7 beers in a muddy, cold field. So maybe it's not that unexpected that a beer would get thrown. I think throwing a beer is probably the second thing to do with a beer apart from drinking it. Like, there aren't many things you can actually do with a beer. I'm not encouraging it. I'm just saying, like, your options are limited. Anyway, but the spitting is different. Great, the options are limited. The spitting is just absolutely nuts. But yeah, maybe it is surprising, isn't it? But I think you assume that people aren't like that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
but people are.
Turning up at a bike race,
People
yeah.
are.
At least he missed.
People are.
I mean,
He did miss, which
well,
is just embarrassing at that point.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like if you're
Yeah,
gonna do
you'd
it,
had a
do it
beer as
properly.
well.
The bad thing you're doing. Luckily, Van der Poel didn't realise,
Yeah.
and he only realised afterwards. But he was more irked at how some riders basically attacked off the front after half the peloton had been held up by a crash. He was more like, spitting obviously bad. This thing that's like against the spirit of racing, also bad. So probably quite glad that he won in the end, where he could turn around and sort of
one
be
of the
like,
many reasons.
screw everyone who's being a bit of a jerk today.
Well, lots of ways to win against adversity for Mathieu van der Poel, who is just a monster at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, E3 is always an interesting one because it is, it's a lot closer to something like Flanders than Gent-Wevelgem is, for example, on Sunday.
It does the same climbs.
It does exactly the same climbs, but it is significantly shorter. It's still really hard to kind of fully take anything out of that. Dane did a piece overnight, published Monday morning, sort of like a form check, right? And I think that the form check at this point for classics riders, as we come into Holy Week, as we head toward Flanders and Roubaix, Johnny, as you and I prepare to pack up and head to Belgium ourselves, the form check is relatively easy right now, right? We've got two riders at the top. We've got Van der Poel and Pogačar sitting at the top. And Pogačar, not necessarily even for his classics prowess this particular season, because he's actually avoided most of these other cobble races, but just because he's Pogačar and what he did at Strada, et cetera, et cetera. Who sits below now? Pedersen? Off of the back of Gent-Wevelgem, I think, is right there.
Pedersen, definitely, yeah.
Ghana. I mean, basically, like the rest of the podium at E3 is a pretty good shout.
Yeah.
Both.
Pedersen, Ghana, yeah. I would put Van Aert in there, even though he's come back from injury.
Nice.
He stayed under the radar at E3, but there was Jonas Kritter, I think you pronounce his name, a Belgian journalist. He sort of did some estimations on the climbing times of the Oude Quermont at E3, and Van Aert was faster than both Pedersen and Ghana, but he was slower than Van der Poel by 10 seconds.
Which is quite a lot on the Oude Quermont.
Well, yeah, I thought it was not so bad, but then, you said that, Kit. Liam, who's a commenter on the Spin Cycle newsletter, he put in all caps only, ? But we've got to think where both these riders are coming from, right? We've got Van der Poel in like some of the form probably of his life, where he's managed to beat Pogačar at Milan San Remo.
Yep.
What he did at E3, whereas Van Aert has come from this long road back from that Vuelta crash.
And he's been at altitude for a few weeks, which,
Been
he
at altitude.
has great fitness, but the the fast twitch will be coming back. So.
And he's flying a helicopter, which is stressful. So Van Aert's had a lot.
He's
on
also
his
got
plate.
2 small children now.
2 small children. We'd have no idea the size of his the island in his kitchen because the Tour de France Unchained documentary hasn't come out. But maybe he's found this. Him being so quiet at E3 fills me with hope that he's re-entering his dark horse era, even if it was even in one ever. But it's more like no one's even really talking about him, so that fills me with lots of hope.
Everyone loves an underdog.
Yeah, big time.
But his team was doing well at Gent-Wevelgem until, they were still doing well. Mathieu Jakobsen in his fantastic new sunglasses. I'm sure you've seen them, Kaylee.
Yes, the Michael Jordan ones, right?
Yeah, you haven't seen them. Your blank look is betraying that you've not seen them.
No,
It's
I've
fantastic. You've
I've
seen
seen
them?
them.
Okay.
No,
He
sorry,
gets alerts on his phone.
Yeah,
I was
probably.
Jorgensen alerts? Oh yeah.
Jorgensen, yeah.
NBC sends over a little flashing thing on my home screen.
Steve Perino just popping up.
And Victor Campenaerts was doing great yesterday at Gent-Wevelgem, getting involved. I mean, Koi's broken his collarbone, which was real sad. Which it actually was a huge moment in Gent-Wevelgem. Pedersen accelerated, and in the space of honestly about 30 seconds, Philipsen had punctured, and Koi had broken his collarbone, and that was it. Yes, the breakaway was still up the road, but Pedersen was coming fast, and he dropped them within 15 kilometers the next time up the Kemmelberg. So that was basically that, and he was never seen again. And it was 56 kilometers solo, which he hasn't done ever. But it's an interesting kind of Pogacar's done the solo, Van der Poel's done the solo. Now Pedersen's, he's adapting to the game.
Yeah. Do you think that's what it is? Do you think he's looking at the others and being like, okay, maybe what I have to do to reach their level is to race like them?
Yeah.
I can't.
Well, I definitely
do
think
what
there's
I've
an
always
element of that, but there were some fantastic quotes both from himself and his team. After, Johnny Milan just said, "I'm really glad that he won because he's media trained to within an inch of his life." But Mads Pedersen was saying, "Oh, it could have been. It was. In fact, there were two. I mean, it could have been a stupid move." What he said was, "Oh shit, I fucked up again." In the moment that he went on this is from Tilda, our colleague at
button.
Cycling News. Yes, apologies to any children listening. But yeah, so our friend Tilda at Cycling News was there this weekend. And she spoke to Mads, and she asked him what went through his mind at the moment that he attacked, and realised he was alone. And it was fairly explicit. And then friend of our podcast, friend of Escape, Tom Squinch, he then said afterwards as well. It was pretty stupid, and I hope he doesn't do it again. So I don't think it was intentional.
These attacks, we've talked about this before, but these attacks they used to be unheard of.
Yeah,
like absolutely unheard of.
56 kilometers.
I remember when somebody on Discord was making fun of me for mentioning Tom Bonin on every episode lately, so I'm going to do it again. When Tom Bonin won Roubaix, I think it was a 46. Penny in the jar. It's classic season. Who else am I going to talk about?
Right, exactly.
When he won, I think it was 46K attack, and like the cycling world went mad. We were like, how is that even possible? And now it's like every other major race gets won in a 50-kilometer solo attack. I mean, Ronan has sort of posited a theory around this, and it's a lot of it's like aerodynamics based, and basically like how fast and how much slipperier that individual rider can be, and so therefore how many more watts the chase group has to do. It's basically the same reason why we have breakaways surviving with pelotons chasing more often. It's all to do with the math, basically. But it's worth taking a moment and just like putting this in context, which is that now we're used to it. 10 years ago, any one of these rides would have been like the ride of the year.
Conspiracy theory. I think it's because, well, one of the reasons is because the Group 2 syndrome has never been so strong. And that's partly because in public and like with our media trained riders, everyone has to be happy clappy. We're all just a bunch of friends riding around different parts of the world. Whereas secretly inside, obviously there are rivalries and people don't get on. So then that's how they sort of stick it to each other, is like, if you I'm not going to even try and help you win. I'm going to just, implode all of our chances and let someone win solo up the road. Quickly on Tom Boonen, in sort of a Jerry Jones, owner of the Dallas Cowboys way, where he makes Super Bowl week all about himself, despite not being in the Super Bowl. Tom Boonen recently, in the past 24 hours, I think, announced that he is expecting another child at the age of 44. Oh. With the help of you, Kaylee, he's really back at the forefront of the news cycle in time for Holy Week. So congrats, Tom Boonen, I guess.
Yeah, congrats. Another. How many kids does he have now? I have no idea.
3 or 4. I don't know either, to be honest. But
a bunch, couple, few, a gaggle.
Yeah. Well, the birth rate's going down, so now we've got to rely on Tom Boonen for repopulating. Yeah. Sorry, to bring us back, I've got one more point from when we're looking towards favourites for Holy Week, Tour of Flanders. Filippo Ganna, end of E3, he chugged his regular-sized podium beer, which was great. He kind of looked towards Mathieu van der Poel for like, look at the fun thing I did, and I don't think Mathieu van der Poel was paying him any attention, so he like looked a tiny bit crestfallen. If you really read into Filippo Ganna's,
do you think maybe he wanted more?
Podium,
I mean, Van der Poel had plenty to spare.
Well, Van der Poel had a lot, and he made the genius move of just giving the massive beer to the audience, to the fans in the audience.
That is genius.
Genius move. But then Filippo Ganna then pulled out of Gent-Wevelgem on Sunday. So
yeah, see, these were the headlines that he pulled out, but he was actually never on the start list. He was only ever a maybe.
Oh, really?
So
okay.
I don't think he pulled out as such. And you look at with Mathieu van der Poel also not going to be at Gent-Wevelgem and Tadej Pogacar having withdrawn, if you wanted to, if you had been thinking about being at Gent-Wevelgem and then those guys didn't turn up and you really desperately want to step up to the top step of the podium, you race it, no? So I think that was always a decision he wasn't going to. I don't think it was a case of pulling out. I think it was a case of committing to his plan. But still,
okay, I won't read into it too much and think that maybe he had one taste of a 5-second pint on the podium and then went on a rage and was like, Gent-Wevelgem on Sunday. No way. The only person who woke up maybe worse on Sunday morning was Jules Hesters of the Flanders Baloise team, 26
also a
years
very
old.
good track rider, by the way.
I was actually about to say that, Kit, and I only knew that because I was looking for a photo of him on Corvos this very morning. He woke up. He's from Ghent, Jules Hesters, but the way that bike racing teams work is that you stay at the team hotel. It's not like you can just, commute as normal from your home to work in the morning. Don't really know why. Guess it makes sense
you can
for
if you're
camaraderie
someone
and
like
whatever.
Van Aert, though. I bet you can.
Probably,
if you've got enough.
You get the private jet about 4 kilometers from
The helicopter.
the helicopter. But anyway, Jules Hester is probably within a stone's throw of his own home, found himself in a hotel room in Ghent and found himself locked in it overnight. No one could get in or out.
Interesting looking hotel too. Looked kind of like a house.
Yeah.
Sometimes the teams do have massive hire out big houses, but
I was gonna say, and this is also it's a second division team, and so or even third division team, second division team. I don't even know if Flanders was
second.
So smaller budget, right? Maybe just Airbnb. Maybe they're Airbnb in a spot.
Yeah, to hire somewhere without functioning doors, which is surely what in the top 3 things you go for when you're booking accommodation. Anyway, he was locked in. Woke up, was like, we've got Gent-Wevelgem in a few hours. This is not ideal preparation. So what they did is they put a ladder up to the window, and he had to sort of reverse out onto it and down and onto the start line. Unfortunately, he did DNF the day, but he was probably just thankful to not still be stuck in his maybe live, laugh, love Ghent Airbnb.
I think what's funny about this is there's going to be a Soigneur now on that team whose to-do list will have check doors work on for each race.
Make sure you bring ladder with you to race.
Would have been better if he had to back out on the ladder on his cycling shoes.
Yeah, I noticed that they put like a towel or a blanket to protect his shins and his nice shoes from when he came over the windowsill.
But yeah, really good stuff. The sort of stuff, the sort of stories that really encapsulates this period of racing in Belgium, where just slightly odd things are always happening. I can't really think of any specific examples, but I saw that headline
Ian
on the picture. I was just like,
chasing Lars Craps around is quite funny. That was a few years ago, no?
That was yeah, exactly. This all fits into the same weird bucket of things. Yeah. But yeah, it's made me excited for the few weeks ahead because everything feels in its right place right now, and it's only going to sort of accelerate into the full body of it.
I agree. Let's take a quick break. We're gonna play ourselves out because the Discord loves it so much. We're gonna play ourselves out on Tom Boonen's theme song.
Tom Bonen komt eruit. Tom Bonen pakt nu over. Tom Bonen over Valverde. Tommeke, wat doe je nu? Tom Bonen gaat wereldkampioen worden. Tom Bonen gaat wereldkampioen worden. Tom Bonen op 1. Tom Bonen op 1. Tom Bonen is wereldkampioen.
Welcome back, everybody. 23 Grand Tour teams confirmed. This has been talked about for about a week and a bit now in public, and there's been sort of discussions around this, negotiations around this for quite some time behind the scenes. It was formally approved by the Pro Cycling Council last week, and now approved by the UCI Management Committee. And this is basically, there's going to be more teams in the Grand Tours. It's as simple as that. And the teams that are going to be getting invites are the ones that are obviously in that second division that would not have automatically qualified. That includes things like Fabio Cancellara posted a very excited, I think it was an Instagram this morning, that Tudor, sort of his team, is going to be at the Tour de France this year. Who else has got the call up, Johnny?
For the Tour de France, Uno X Mobility and Total Energies. In what could be Total Energies' last season, if the sort of rumours we've been hearing come to pass, And Uno X Mobility also, I think, very relieved they've got the wild card, because there were definitely some quotes floating around a couple of months ago. Maybe after they'd won. It was after Søren Warrenskold won. What did he win?
Omloop.
The
Omloop
Omloop.
Newsblad.
Thank you. It's only a month ago, but I'd already forgotten which one it was. Sort of saying like, we're winning big races. We are, usually animating races. If we don't get a Tour de France wildcard, I don't really know where we go with this team, because we're supposedly doing everything we should be. So kind of he didn't say what's the point, but that kind of felt like what he was getting at. So it means we'd get Alexander Kristoff in what could likely be his last year of racing, and Magnus Kort at the Tour de France. That's
And
good.
Julian Alaphilippe
For Tudor. Maybe Dane's, joint first favourite rider with Juan Ayuso, Mark Hershey.
Yep.
So he'll be relieved. I'll text him because he's in the UK, so it won't cost me any extra. It'll come out of my free texts. And Total Energies will have Mathieu Bergadou, Golden Potato Boy. And probably someone else from Total Energies I've forgotten. Maybe they had a stage winner last year, didn't they? No, they didn't. Anyway, so it's all good news. All good news. More teams at the Giro, at the Vuelta, at the Tour. I say, you've given me 23. Give me 23 more. Let's have 4 riders per team, and just let's grow the pie together. 46 teams, 4 riders each. Adds way more jeopardy into the thing. We don't have these long trains. It's it's more about
It's a lot of breakaway
about
wins.
your own, lots of breakaway wins. It's more about it's not all on the super teams. It opens the playing field. It's probably a million reasons why that's a dumb decision, but let me be the last to approve the move to 23 after the PCC, after the UCI Management Committee. Spin Cycle Podcast now approves the move as well.
I mean, the original reason to decrease the size of the peloton was a safety thing, and I think they've kind of admitted that is irrelevant. Like, going from 180 to 200 riders, it's still a big group of riders, right? It doesn't actually really matter. And as we said, I think when we first were talking about this story, the big teams didn't love this because they just don't want more riders in the way. They don't want more other teams in the way. But I like it because, there's no pyramid in cycling. There's no way for the funding to trickle down, right, to these smaller teams. The best way for it to trickle down is to put them in the Tour de France. That's how you guarantee that they continue to exist, basically. And so the more teams you can get into the Tour, kind of the better. Obviously there's a limit. We're not going to have a 400 rider peloton. And as fun as that would be to put 4 riders per team in the race, I think that would be... it's pretty frequently a team loses half of its 8. So you'd have teams that just didn't exist in the Tour anymore.
But then that would add so much jeopardy, because then that last rider remaining, the sponsor would be breathing down the neck. Like, I don't care how much your legs hurt. I don't care how tired you are. I need to see, that brand of gravel on my TV screen for 3 hours a day.
Was it I forget which iteration of Green Edge / Jayco / whatever. Didn't Swain Tuft finish the Giro alone?
They certainly had 2 finishing.
Was it 2 riders?
1 year, yeah. It was when they were doing their behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Dan Jones, they had Dan Jones recording a video every single day, and only 2 stars to feature in it. And they weren't the most, if I remember correctly, they weren't exactly the most loquacious of the team. They weren't particularly interested in being involved.
No. Swain Tuft is not chatty, I would say.
No, he was always a good character on it, because he is a character. But he's not going to kind of...
The book that he
I really want to read
wrote
it.
with Richard Abraham is worth checking out. I think it's We'll Never Be Here Again. Is that the
something like that?
The title of the book? I haven't read the whole thing. I've read a couple excerpts, but really, really, the bits I've read of it are really, really good. Really interesting.
My favorite picture of him is I don't know if it was before or after his cycling career. I think I've got a feeling it might have been during, when he was up in the mountains somewhere with a trailer like a flatbed trailer on the attached to the back of his bike, and a dog sitting on it. And he was wearing sandals, if I remember correctly. Just on a bike strip.
I think that was pre-career, but he's definitely done that since as well.
Yeah.
He did some crazy ride like all the way across Canada or something like that, and had like fighting grizzly bear and all sorts of fun stuff.
Classic.
Lotto were the other team that I think were at Grand Tour and only had 2 or 3 riders left, but I can't remember exactly when that is. Actually, mentioned Lotto, Arnaud Delis DNF'd Gent-Wevelgem, and he's also pulled out of Tour of Flanders. he had problems last year with the
He had Lyme disease. Yeah.
They don't know what the problem is this time around, but they're saying like they're gonna rest him for a bit, reset, because they need to get him well for the Belgian Nats and Tour de France, because he's really one of the only riders they've got left. I mean, they've got a couple of others, but
They've got Van Ettenveld, but he's not going to get the same
No.
sort of points
Yeah.
as a GC rider. He's not going to get the same sort of points as
Yeah.
Deli. I mean, they're relatively safe, I think, already. Are they not in the points
it's more
battle?
just
But
going.
it is, yeah. It's also the kid's safe, the kid's health.
Yeah,
I mean, he's 23.
it's-
Well, didn't he? He's I don't know. I mean, Lyme disease can recur. I don't know if it can recur a year after having had some good results in between, but it can. There can be chronic issues with it. So hopefully it's not. I mean, they have said it's not that. I don't know how thorough the investigations have been, but he's clearly. I mean, I think there was. It wasn't Tom Boner, but it was somebody of that era who said that he's being overworked, over raced as a young guy. But who knows?
that's because I think Lotto are in some fairly significant, financial trouble in terms of future funds and stuff like that. So they're probably doing all they can to attract those sponsors in. So it's not looking good for one of, if not the oldest team still around. But should we head over to Catalonia quickly to recap, because that was pretty good.
It's an interesting
It was
weekend.
good.
That race. Yeah,
It was good. It was good, and it was good for Primoz Roglic as he sort of aims at the Giro d'Italia, because he ended up taking the victory there quite handily. Actually,
Yeah, it was a proper race too, a proper way
Yeah.
to
He
win as
raced.
well.
yeah.
It was, yeah. I mean, it almost came down to bonus seconds. At least bonus seconds were in play, because he and Ayuso was leading by 1 second, and there were two intermediate sprints before they got to the famous Montjuic Park climb, which they did 6 times, and that's typically where there've been a lot of attacks before. So in the first intermediate sprint, Roglic took 3 seconds. He put Nico Denz through with 2, and then Ayuso got 1. So he was in the lead again. But then Ayuso basically used up Red Bull and battled his way through and took it
Bit
back.
cheeky.
So they were back.
cheeky of a
Well,
sprint.
it was also slightly cheeky of Red Bull. I think they were kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, they were racing. They were doing kind of sprint tactics and keeping him out of the way. But he didn't. Crucially, he didn't take his hands off the bars, but he did do some ducking and diving. But yeah, then when Roglic ultimately attacked, Egan Bernal was on his wheel, which was great. He was well positioned and he was looking good, and he did end up finishing 7th overall, which is great. Just a few weeks after breaking his collarbone. But Ayuso was on his wheel and he was unable to come round, and then it was the descent and Roglic was on rails, and then he kept his margin, and it was so he really properly raced.
skis.
Yeah, well,
He
was
was
on
watching
Snoop.
ski jumping either before or after on his phone. I
Was
think
it?
it must have been after. Yeah, he was watching. I think there must have been some big
Well,
competition
it was
going on.
it was morning in Barcelona. It was a strange old stage.
Ah,
Well, it's because
yeah, well-
Barcelona football was playing in the afternoon, I think, so they had to clear out.
Oh, I was wondering I was in so early. The other thing about Roglic afterwards, when in the interview, I've never seen him so sort of like relaxed and effusive. Like it was almost like he was delighted with himself for having properly raced and not like kind of sucked wheels and then sprinted out to snatch wins and stuff like that. So I've never seen his what's the word, like jawline so pronounced. So he's looking ready for the Giro, like proper ready. Maybe it's just that like old man sort of thing where you lose a bit more of that puppy fat and you're just like carved by Father Time and just ready to go. I was ready to also come on this podcast and sort of talk about Juan Ayuso in terms of like, look, if he gets absolutely like raced into a hole by an old Primoz Roglic, sort of in the twilight of his years, then is Juan Ayuso going to be this guy who's looking to rival Pogačar within his own team? But then I went back and looked at Primoz Roglic the last time he raced and won the Catalonia in 2023,
Yes.
and Roglic quite not handily, but sort of death by 1,000 bonus points, beat Remco Evenepoel into second place.
Yeah.
And then Remco did okay after that. So it's not necessarily the worst bit. The worst bit actually for Ayuso was after the finish line on the Barcelona stage. He was coming back towards the finish line, presumably for podium or doping control, and there were riders still coming through. There was a member of the race organising committee, organisation, whatever, who was like trying to slow them down with his hand, and was like waving his hand just so he came past, and just absolutely flicked him, like whacked him in the face. And I was just like, this is the last thing I need after having been beaten by Roglic and kind of not won in my home city. I've now just got whacked in the face by a dude in a bike race. So that would be fuel for the fire for Ayuso, because he's also going to the Giro. So we've kind of had a little bit of a preview of hopefully what we can have in Italy.
The Giro and Catalonia are very, very different races, right?
Yes.
Of course.
What was the longest climb in Catalonia?
Yeah,
20 minutes?
7 or 8.
Right?
Yeah, 7 or 8K, I think.
Yeah. So they're
Fair
you're
enough.
talking about like your point about
There.
Remco, Johnny, is that like Roglic is built for Catalonia. Just sort of full gas for 15-20 minutes with a little kick sprint at the end. He's probably among the best in the world at that.
Yeah,
Definitely
that sort of
more than
one day finale. But Ayuso's won a lot of those recently, so he should have been on his game better yesterday.
But that's why it was close, right? Like they're both pretty good at that stuff. But I think the theory is that Ayuso is going to be better when we get to the long stuff.
No,
We'll
what I
see.
mean,
We'll see at the Giro this
Roglic
year.
was not able to distance Ayuso on the big hills, so
Yeah.
we shall. Yes, indeed, we shall see.
Kit, what was up with there's a cancellation at stage 6.
Oh, wow.
Ended up being like this sort of funky. It was wind induced,
Yeah,
right? And then
extreme wind.
they kicked it off again, and Quinn Simmons won. American Quinn Simmons and his facial hair.
I thought it was
Oh,
Hulk
interesting.
Hogan, wasn't it? That's what it looked like.
Yeah, it was a weird stage. I mean, the first news early morning that popped up on my phone as I was walking my dog was that they'd taken out the horse category climb. So obviously Saturday was meant to be the Queen stage. It was meant to be the day where we were going to see the best gauge of Giro form from the big dogs, because there were going to be 4 first category or HC climbs, including a summit finish up the Kerrang, which is a typical classic finale at the Volta a Catalunya, which Pogacar won up last year. But that was still going to be staying in, but they took out this first climb. I try and make the long story short. There was then basically a kind of wholesale overhaul of the stage. So they just do 2 local laps of the start town, which were lumpy, but not nearly hit. There were no classified climbs. But the first lap was going to be neutralized so that they could check that it was safe, so they could check that there was no debris on the road. Because Ben O'Connor had said beforehand that there'd been one of those government notifications on the phones that splashed them and said extreme weather. So that's obviously a warning. But also, as they were driving in, there were branches falling off trees and clattering into the bus, and obviously you don't really want to get onto a bicycle in Lycra with that happening.
No.
So the first,
I got helmets. What's the problem?
well, yeah, so the first lap was
Safety
meant to
third.
be neutralised. Safety third. But about halfway through the first lap, so after about 40 kilometres of racing, during which the commissaires had at one point said, "Guys, you've got to speed up. This is too slow."
God.
A bunch of riders, starting with Roglic, but he didn't get the point across, evidently. A bunch of Spanish riders, including Marc Soler, who I wouldn't pick a fight with, Omar Fraile, and who else was it? Anyway, Juanpe Lopez. I wouldn't pick a fight with him either, even though I'm bigger than him. But they all went up to the commissaire and basically negotiated or told them, "We're going to start racing in 5K, and then we'll stop first passage of the finish line, contest the stage. That's bish bash bosh. That's what we do." It took quite a while to agree, but that's what eventually happened. It was a very strange 25K stage in the end. Quinn Simmons caught them a little bit off guard, just outside the Flamme Rouge, and just cracked on. There was some clear hesitation, and classic shouting at the screen, "Guys, you got to move!" But he stayed away. Pavel Bittner came up fast behind him, but it was too late. So Quinn Simmons and his flapping. What do you call them? I don't know.
Mutton chops.
Are they mutton chops?
Are they mutton
They're really
chops
something.
in America? I don't know what they're called.
Yeah,
He
we
also
call them
did.
mutton chops, I
You call them
think.
mutton chops? Here's that.
Okay.
Here's that. Got that.
Yeah, they were
going.
flapping
He also
in the
did
wind. Right.
He did like a cowboy pistol celebration.
Did he
you could
now?
just see before, as he was coming out the bottom of the screen, which American athletes and other sports, if you do that, I'm pretty sure you get fined quite a lot of money. So maybe
The
he's
gun
just making
one?
the point that, so, in what Quinn Simmons has found is that he actually has more freedom in Europe for his right to bear celebration arms
Oh,
than
wow.
in his
Well
home
done.
country.
Good job.
But
Chapeau.
Roglic was the main beneficiary, I think, of that stage being curtailed. He kind of said as much in his post-victory interview on the Sunday. So it still leaves me with the question to loop back around: is Roglic back, or is Juan Ayuso not as good as we thought? And that's what I'm interested in.
I don't think you can
now.
answer
That's what
either
I
of
need
those
to know.
questions.
You can't, but it's just
I
that's
think
what
it was
I've got.
good.
I'm looking,
I
for
think
answers
something
to.
that we can say is Roglic looks confident and happy, and he didn't crash, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
That's because he spoke to the monk at the top of Montserrat a couple of days before he did a deal with God. We all know how it works. And then he met
deal with God, and then he met a very strange mascot at the finish, and he didn't look at all miffed by it. The photo, it was, there's no side eye. He just looked like it was perfectly normal. But I guess once you've met a bunch of mascots, it starts to become normal.
I think by this
Very
stage in
odd.
Roglic's life is that it takes a lot to sort of not spook him, but surprise him. He just things happen. And he's just fine. Someone hands him a thing of Morton's, and they're like, "Okay, tell us just how much you love Morton's." He's like, "Fine, whatever, just do it." Anything to get him closer to just sitting in a nice patch of land in Slovenia with no one bothering him anymore.
Yep. He's getting
I
close
think what
to that.
he didn't have to
He
do a
is.
great deal to win in the end. He just had to be smart and position himself, and he did one attack, and then he just held his margin, and depended on the lack of coherence behind him.
Yeah.
Cohesion?
Yeah,
Coherence? Cohesion.
both.
I think both those work.
Well, yeah. But yeah. So he. I think what I took away from it was, we didn't get the race that we wanted, or that anyone wanted, and certainly not what Ayuso wanted. But Roglic raced it, and good for him.
Good for
Yeah.
Roglic.
And we get to look forward to the Giro now. Because that's
Yeah.
not that far away at this
No,
point.
it's
We're a
not.
month
5
away.
weeks.
Yeah,
Five
just
and a
over
half
a month
weeks,
away. Just over a month
Whoa.
away from the Giro. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, Fabio Jakobsen had some unfortunate news.
Tommeke, wat doe je nu? Tom Bonen gaat wereldkampioen worden. Tom Bonen op één. Tom Bonen is wereldkampioen. Niet te geloven.
Tom, je allereerste reactie? Ja, ongelooflijk.
Tommeke, wat doe je nu?
Welcome back, everybody. So, I think we were kind of rude to Fabio Jakobsen recently. I can't remember exactly how. I think we just we just said he wasn't.
We were saying
the
that
top tier of sprinters anymore.
Yeah, it was that the previous top generation of sprinters had basically finally almost been wholesale replaced by the new generation, which was based in sort of
Which
facts
remains
and results.
true. Yeah, remains true.
Doesn't mean
But-
we're reveling in it. Yeah.
Yeah, but we got news overnight that Fabio Jakobsen might be basically retired at this point. Why?
Well, I mean, he's having the fairly common, more common than regular humans, a fairly common injury or condition that cyclists can pick up is the iliac artery narrowing. And so he appears to have it in both legs, so he'll have surgery to hopefully fix it. I mean, a lot of cyclists have had multiple surgeries to try and fix that, including Marianne Vos. So I think they've said his career is certainly on pause, and he'll have surgery, and we'll see how it goes from there. I was concerned that this was, maybe he was thoroughly spooked, or at least he wasn't able to fully shake off the horrors of 2020 for him, and that he was losing. Losing the love for cycling. So I'm hopeful that he'll get it sorted, and then he'll come back and get back on form and get some more big wins before he really does disappear off into obscurity. But it's horrible news for him. I mean, he deserves a break, really.
So he's 28, going to be 29 in August. He's actually nearly exactly 28 and a half today. Anyway, when he comes back, my prediction will be, I reckon he could end up at the Titema Rockets. I reckon their next step, they've got a few invites to, some of the bigger classics. They're doing this whole thing to be, they're French registered to try and help them get race invites, whatever, yada, yada, yada. Their next step is doing a Tudor or Q36.5, where you get big star on the downward trajectory of their career, or looking for who doesn't fit into the mold of one of these top World Tour teams. And
do an Alexander Kristoff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think he would fit in well with them, and would he's got great story behind his career. Let's be the first to announce Fabio Jakobsen 2027 Titema Rockets.
I could see it. We should talk more about Titema Rockets. It's very interesting.
Yes, it's on my list of stories to cover in Belgium, particularly because their riders really wanted a big bus like all the other teams, but I've said before about how the fun thing about the Titema Rockets is just a bunch of like 20-year-olds running a bike team, and you kind of very much get that vibe when you're like kind of in the periphery of where they are at bike races. But they do have a proper adult who's like the accountant, the one in charge of the money, who was featured in a recent like video I saw online about them, who has never lets them buy a bus and spend all their money on a big bus, but they've managed to get one for the few weeks of the classic. So and they like unveiled it to the whole team. All the riders were very, very happy. So I think now is the time. They're kind of, this is a new level for the Titema Rockets to get to. So
should we just back up a little bit, maybe like a little bit of context on what this team is? So
yes, sorry. So
this is a YouTuber.
Yes, it's a Dutch guy called Bas Titema he won like Paris-Roubaix under 19s, like the youth Paris-Roubaix.
Like strong rider, yeah.
Strong rider. I think he had a few injury problems, or it didn't quite work out for him. So he starts making a bunch of YouTube videos, like giving riders pizza at the Champs-Élysées in the Tour, filming stuff on the mountains of the Tour, doing his own sort of cycling challenges, whatever. And it's kind of built out from that.
Got Xboxes to the riders that were stuck in quarantine when COVID first hit where were they? They weren't in Dubai. They were in somewhere in the UAE.
I can't remember where.
Anyway, all the riders were stuck in their hotel rooms, and he managed to get them Xboxes from across the world, and then make videos out of it.
That was good. Yeah. He like gets them riders to do keepy uppies with a football like before races. He's kind of like the answer, like cycling's Dutch answer to Mr. Beast. It's like sort of the Mr. Beastification of the weird and backwards world of European road racing, which I think there's definitely a space for. But then basically he's then flipped that into running like a continental team, now running a pro team, getting sponsors like Unibet, the gambling site, on, and like other sponsors in. So very successful, kind of done it all himself, which is quite wild. And they've got a few good riders now. But yeah, Fabio Jakobsen, that's how I got into this.
Well, it's like the Gen Z version of it's quite an established pipeline. It's sort of from media to running a team, because teams are fundamentally media operations, right? Like you are selling impressions in the same way that you would sell impressions on a website, right? You're selling it essentially like you're selling podium impressions. You're selling impressions on TV when they're in the breakaway, and it is a very similar business actually. Richard Plugge, if we want to circle the plug hole very briefly, was a media operative back in the day. Was a journalist back in the day. He's not the first either. So there's been quite a few that have gone on this pathway, but the latest version of this is not a sort of formal, ink and paper journalist becoming a general manager. It's a YouTuber becoming a general manager of a cycling team. And I think it's really interesting because they're therefore going to approach it more as a like media entity. And how do you create content around this team? And how do you take the things that the team is already doing and amplify them and distribute them in a really interesting way? And frankly, pro cycling needs that, right? Like there's not that many teams that do it very well. I would say over the years, maybe Green Edge has done it well. EF with Rafa have done it quite well, making their own content. But most content that comes out of teams is garbage. It's absolute garbage, right? And so a team run by somebody who knows how to make content that the sort of next generation is into on a platform that younger generations are on is a very interesting thing. And that's why I think we should poke around a little bit more at these things.
I'm glad you agree. I'm glad to have pre-validation for my work. The one thing that is quite eerie is that so they were at the Arctic Race of Norway with me and Ian. I was doing a story on how they were going for the salmon prize, like without it being official or before it got announced or whatever, like a big a marketing thing they'd taken to Tor Hushovd to kind of be like, this is how we get attention on your race. So super smart. But when you start interviewing their riders about stuff, suddenly you can feel like the vlogging cameras come out and then you become a part of like the content, and you're just there like, okay, like I do like the whole vibe of everything you're doing, but just I didn't really.
I don't
At
want
no
to
point
be
did
on
you
your
ask. I don't want to
video.
be in a YouTube video. You're speaking Dutch, so I don't know what you're saying about me
Yeah.
to my face. But yeah, fun. Like changing it up a little bit, keeping you on your toes. It's all
Yep.
good.
Yeah, I like
we'll
it.
bring you more on the Tietema boys soon.
Side note: have you seen what
Oh, yeah.
Q36.5 have started producing?
Yes, the Tom thing.
Yes,
What- is
Team
that
on
what it is?
Mission. Tom.
Team
I
on
mean,
Mission,
you don't have
Tom.
to be a genius to work out what they're trying to say there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Team on Mission. Tom Pitcock.
Does
They're
this mean they've
missing-
thrown away
they're
the
missing a
adventure
word there.
scientist thing? Team on the mission. No,
You need
team
a,
on
you
a
need an
mission.
Team on a
Tone.
mission.
Oh yeah.
Tone.
Well, it could be on multiple missions, I guess. But team on
on
mission is
missions.
not actually
Toms.
a sentence.
Yes.
Team on missions.
That's
I
when
mean,
they,
it's-
that's when they
it's-
sign Tom Squinch in a couple of years. Then they can do multiple missions because they'll have Pidcock and Toms.
I think they're probably very proud of it, and it's actually it's like,
Yeah, at least they're trying.
Yeah.
good
try
job.
something.
Go for it.
A
Eddie
little
Merckx is
bit-
back in the hospital.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Well, he's back out of the
getting
hospital actually,
Back
but
out of
yeah.
the hospital.
Herentals?
Was in the hospital briefly. Was he in Herentals?
Was it?
Ooh.
Don't know if it was
I have
Herentals.
no idea.
But he fell off his bike at the end of last year, got a hip replacement, and then he had to go back in because the titanium. Is it called a prosthesis?
It's the titanium hip replacement was loose.
Yeah, it came unattached from his body, so they had to put it back on. But he's all right. He's cracking on.
Yeah, he
79.
said, I think because it was a couple of weeks ago, and I read last weekend about it. He'd said just on the Sunday after the surgery, which was on the Friday, I think, on the Sunday he was already, when he was getting up and about, he could already feel that it was a lot better because he hasn't been able to get on his bike. And for like 3 months while he's been doing his rehab with the same physio who has treated Wout van Aert and Remco.
What
There's
a,
actually
what
only
a
two
life
doctors
that
in
guy
all of
lives.
Belgium.
Yes.
doctors,
But
one
yeah, so
hospital.
he's now looking forward to getting back on his bicycle.
How much healthcare is accessible by the normal Belgian man or woman when
Yeah.
these cyclists are just
the
keep
two
falling off
doctors
their
in Belgium.
bikes? But yeah, I thought Eddie Merckx had sworn off riding his bike because he kept.
No,
on
he's
falling
sworn off
it.
riding his bike alone.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. So
Well,
he just
his
has to have
wife,
witnesses.
told him he wasn't allowed to
Yes.
anymore.
Yeah.
If an Eddie Merckx falls on a Belgian bike path and no one's around, I don't know where that goes. Someone will figure out.
Let's try.
Kit, you've got a
Hello.
colour wheel correction corner.
Oh well. I'm very aware that we all see colours differently, but I did
As
see
a colorblind person, somewhat colorblind person, I will.
Are you
I will-
colourblind?
Oh yeah.
Ah.
most people. I mean,
Red,
it's not
green.
most people. There are a lot of people who are.
Yeah.
Really? Could I be?
It's- You could. I mean, we could all be. I mean, you have a conversation with
God.
anyone. Pick it with your. I don't know. Next time you're with your friends or your family or your girlfriend or whatever. You'll find there's a color in your kitchen that you don't see the same. You'd say this is more pink than red. No, this is more red than pink.
Ah.
Most of us see colors differently to the next person. But anyway, remember the massive hoo-ha a few years ago when Richard Carapaz he got delivered with a gold bike by Pinarello, but it was bronze.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, they've kind of done it again with Egan Bernal's Colombian National Champs bike. So he's got a nice new Colombian National Champs jersey with the yellow, blue, red stripes, and it looks accurate. Looks like a
It's a
Colombian
proper
national
one
flag.
with a proper big flag, like wrap around.
No, it's white. It's an all white skin suit and a white helmet, just with a narrow. But it's not got stupid logos everywhere like the UAE
Yeah.
ones.
It's
It's just
decent.
nice, neat.
We'll
yeah,
take
it's
Like
it.
a
Okay,
six.
fine.
It's a 6.5 out of 10.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Compared to the UAE one or 0.5. But yeah, but then his bike. So he got a new bike for the Volta a Catalunya, but I swear to you, it's lime green. So it's
mean-
closer to an Azerbaijan flag than it is to Colombia. But
Uh,
whatever. I mean,
you knew the Azerbaijan flag just off the top of your head?
looked. I knew I recognised the colours. I mean, it's the Azerbaijan green is much more green than than lime
it's
green. It's
good,
more
it's a
forest
bit-
green
I-
than lime green.
Yeah, it's a
But
bit
yeah,
Azerbaijan.
I reckon. Yeah, I had to check it was Azerbaijan and not Lithuania, which is green, red,
Yeah.
and yellow. But
I agree with you, Kit.
Thank
I'm
you.
looking at the picture now. It will be up on screen for those watching on YouTube. There's definitely a difference of lime green to yellow, and I don't know
the
how.
trouble is, the situation here is rather like you often see when teams turn up with, they've got a secret locker in the bus with coloured helmets to match with a
Yeah.
leader's jersey at a Grand Tour, and they've got the colours wrong. Sometimes it works. Like at the Giro's already got a little bit of mismatch with their shorts and jersey. You've got the kind of the slight mismatch, so you can get away with a differently coloured helmet. But when you've got the nice, neat, good job, is it BioRacer at Ineos now?
Yeah, I think so.
They've done a decent job of getting the colours at least. Well,
I
let's
imagine
call
it's
that
actually
right.
quite difficult.
Yes, it is very difficult. I mean, I
'Cause you're
did a
trying
product
to
design
print-
degree, and we did a whole term on colour management. It was very boring.
Yeah.
Really?
But it's well, no, we did like it was probably half a term, several lectures on colour management.
Wow.
And
What's the number one rule of color management?
that there is basically
None.
way to match colours. Digitally, I mean, you get
Yeah.
it would be to take this orange that we've got in our background and try and replicate it accurately would take an awfully long time, and it probably wouldn't look right to everyone anyway.
Okay.
It's and different screens, different colours.
Wow.
Yeah, it's color management is a minefield. So I do appreciate that that's difficult. But I mean, there's a difference between yellow and lime green. So that was my point, basically.
This is the only cycling podcast that is going to have this particular discussion.
I need
Yes,
a t-shirt. I need a t-shirt with color management as a minefield on it. I enjoyed that.
I did
We
enjoy
should
that.
we should have a Kit's degree corner like once a fortnight or once a month.
Well, I have a few of them. I'm gonna.
Yeah, exactly.
Not to
We can all
brag.
learn
That
something.
sounded awful.
Well, brag all you want. You were before the 9K fees, weren't you?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so fill your boots.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
That
well,
feels.
Yeah,
don't
when
worry.
my siblings all went off to uni, and Johnny evidently, the yearly fees went from 3.5 to 12 grand, or was it 9 grand and then 12 grand?
9 grand, yeah, 9 grand.
It was a big leap.
Mine
Yeah.
was like 35.
Yeah, well, I know.
Yeah, well, that's another
It's all
kettle of
over
fish.
Should we head
this
into After
feels
Dark
like-
so we can talk
yeah,
about
it feels like the end of the show.
should we talk about the price, the cost of higher education? That seems
Yeah,
like something
That
and if
sounds
that,
thrilling.
and just to let everyone know, if you are on the edge of your seat for more discussion of higher education across the Atlantic, it only costs you about £7.99 a month if you sign up to become a member.
There we go.
No, actually, in After Dark, I have a correction. There's a correction corner that we're gonna head into. We're gonna talk a little bit about our Belgium trip that's coming up and what
I've got a new hobby.
and Johnny's new hobby, which is very exciting. And then I don't know. Should we put some cycling related in After Dark this time?
I'll do it in between.
Should I further
the
should I
sign-off.
further hint? Should I further hint at how we confirmed that Pogacar was going to Roubaix like 2 weeks before it was confirmed?
No, but I don't think so. I think you should not risk that because
Okay.
You
We
want
don't
the pipeline to stay open.
the
we've got to
pipeline
keep that
must stay
pipeline open. I've got
Yeah.
some stuff on Mads Pedersen and how he has some secrets.
Oh. All right. Let's head into After Dark. If you're listening to the free feed, this is it. We'll see you Friday. If you are a member listening on the member feed, stick around.